Yeah, that is clear.
Okay. Just let me know if I'll just keep my phone on standby in case I have to switch over on that real quick.
Okay, we are live now. Um, a very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the webinar on becoming a customer-centric data-driven retailer. We have with us today a very prestigious panel. People from all across India. The topic today is becoming a customer-centric data-driven retailer, and the webinar is powered by Google Cloud. I will not waste any time and quickly introduce our esteemed panelists. We have with us today Gaurav Juneja, Director, StarQuik, Trent Hypermarket. Pratik Shah, CEO and Founder, Specsmakers, Opticians Private Limited. Rajesh Shewani, Customer Engineering Manager, Google Cloud. Sujoy Mitra, Head Business Technology, Hometown. Vinay Chatlani, co-founder and ED, Soch Apparels Private Limited, and Mani Singhal, MD and partner, BCG India. Mani will be the moderator for the day. Over to you, Mani. All the best, guys. We are looking forward to an insightful session.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rai team. Thank you for getting us all together today. It's an absolute privilege to be moderating this esteemed panel. Thank you for the audience that has also tuned in. The topic that we have today is, of course, extremely relevant and more so in the post-COVID world. So the panel today is representing multiple categories, apparel, accessories, we have home, and at the same time also grocery. Each will have their own unique consumer journey. So really looking forward to an engaging interaction. We'll plan for a 45 to 50 minutes of discussions. And then towards the end of 10 minutes, we will take the questions from the audience. So that's how we go. And, without any further ado, let me just jump right into the discussion. One of the first questions that I actually want to start with is that as, leaders in your organizations, how do you really describe customer centricity? And what was that first moment of truth when you started realizing that this is table stakes? Gaurav, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Mani. For a B2C high velocity business like groceries, there is no other way but to, listen to the customer. For us, the business has a very, very high element of seasonality, of being hyper local. So you've got to listen to the customer, and that too, at that very, very granular level, where you're able to understand, okay, what kind of rice does the customer like eating in Bombay versus Bangalore? So it gets down to literally that level, and it as a result impacts all decisions, whether it is assortment, whether it is how we are setting up our promotions, how we do our deliveries. Do people prefer morning and evening slots only, or are people open to get deliveries through the day? So for us, customer centricity is table stakes. It impacts every element of design, of business design, and there is no other way but to have that in place to make sure you're delivering the right experience for the customer. Otherwise, there is so much friction in a category like groceries, where the average cart is like 20 items. Start seeing a lot of drops. So for us, this is absolutely the starting point and the ending point, and everything comes in between.
Very helpful. Sujoy, I think you wanted to add in.
Yeah. So Mani, the way we look at from a home perspective, so the difference that home brings with it in terms of its business model is it has a number of high engagement, multi touch points. So it's not only channel of sales, whether it is online or stores as an offline, but it is also, so if you look at the entire gamut of furniture or homeware for that matter, which includes home furnishing and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at furniture, it doesn't begin and end only at the store. So there is an element wherein you go, you procure it, and then there's an element of delivery. There is an element of fitment connected to it. And in all cases, so for us, customer centricity was mainly focused on two aspects, or rather it points on two aspects. One, the customer should be able to have the same information, whatever be the channel.
Are we losing Sujoy, or is it just me?
We can't hear him.
No, I think his screen's frozen. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll wait for him to come back. Pratik, you want to share your thoughts on?
Absolutely. So,
sorry, Pratik, I think Sujoy is back.
Oh, sorry. I guess my internet connection was unstable. So effectively, the touch points would be multiple. Whether it was booking, whether it has left a warehouse, it has got delivered, whether it's fitment, it would also come to warranty. Multiple maintenance that happens because that's the way furniture works. Okay, and in each of these, the thought process is whatever be the channel of communication, whether it is online or whether it is offline, the customer should have the same level of the same experience. Effectively, it is the same data that should get powered whether the customer is interacting through web or with the customer service executive or with the store personnel. Okay, so that was key to our customer centricity. The second part is of course in terms of, and I guess that would happen for all retailers. But the idea is, so we are not, I mean, unlike many other segments, we are not a fast-moving segment because that's the way business is, right? I mean, you wouldn't buy a furniture, the same set of bed probably in 2 years time period. But you might be buying multiple things in as part of the share of home. So the idea is also to look at and predict and go back to the customer saying that we know this is what has been your purchase history, or this is what your interest lies, not even purchase history. Purchase history is later. Even once you have shown interest in a certain item and you have not bought it, you have not decided it because you are still trying to figure out multiple other competitors, from multiple other competitors about your pricing decision or your buying decision, then you ought to be, how do you get back and say, this might also work for you? Okay, given your past intent and past buying history, this might also work for you. Okay, so that was the second part of it. Yeah.
Right. No, very interesting, because I was wanting to get to what's that moment of truth when you think, this became table stakes. What I understood from you is that this was always table stakes, as you started thinking about each of the categories in the business. So, that's very interesting. Pratik, I know I halted you earlier because Sujoy came back. You want to go share your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think, for a kind of category that we are in, where the repeat purchase of the customer is once in about 12 to 18 months. I think the best way to be customer centric is to engage the customer with different products that can be purchased multiple number of times. So as we got into this pandemic, what I do quite a bit at the company as a team we do is we research a lot of products that customers can use. Like we introduced 3 products over this entire pandemic. We were the first to launch the computer glasses in the month of March, where the market opened up quite a bit for us because it is not only people who have eye power need glasses, even people who don't have eye power today need glasses because of the amount of time they spend on the screen. Kids computer glasses was one of the most innovations that we actually took off, and that's how our e-commerce kind of shot up very well, because we're the first guys to introduce kids computer glasses. That became more like a fear in the parents' mind that my kid is on screen for so long, I need computer glasses for them. I think we do a lot of research and innovation in coming out with products that are low ticket value but higher frequency of purchase, and more number of people need that. So we recently were the first again to introduce. We saw that a lot of people have this problem of wearing a mask and fogging off their glasses. Okay, so we introduced a basic cloth which basically to clean your glasses with it doesn't fog for 8 hours. So that's an anti-fog cloth. So these are the kind of, where the ticket value is low but the frequency of purchase is higher, makes your customer keep coming back to you again and again. And the more number of times the customer keeps coming back to you, 1 out of 10 customers tend to buy up another new product of a high ticket value. And that's how we try to engage with our customer and try to be customer centric. Otherwise, eyewear as a product, you just need to buy once in 12 months. Otherwise, people will sit for like 2 years till it doesn't break. It's not like a pair of jeans or clothes that you have multiple pairs, right? Unfortunately, eyewear is still considered that, one perfect fit. Until it breaks, I need a new one. That's why, you introduce products where people come to your store or your website multiple number of times to try out new collections, but can continuously keep increasing the wardrobe because the ticket values are lower. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very interesting example of the anti-fog cloth. I'm assuming the speed to market in this one has actually been exemplary. One from identifying what the consumer problem is and then actually addressing with the product market. So that's great to hear. Rajesh, I see you smiling, so maybe why don't you go? What's your take on this one?
No, I think it's absolutely necessary to understand what the needs are and then appropriately react, right? And I think that was a need that was identified, that was just described as the anti-fog cloth, and fulfill that at the right time. And I think that's key when we talk about customer centricity. I think from our perspective as Google, and there are a lot of consumer-facing apps, and cloud actually learns from the Google's own consumer-facing apps to see what we can engage better. But predominantly, we look at it from three broad data signals that we're looking for, right? When you want to be more customer centric. First of all, understanding who are they, right? Who are my customers or prospects, as we typically talk about, right? Meaning the typical demographic, psychographic, where they come from, and so on, right? So first of all, understanding who are they, and second would be where are they, right? I mean, are they shopping online? Are they shopping in store? Is it hybrid? Is it a combination, or is it purely something that we need to send home? So first, that's where are they really right now, and then understanding that data signal. And the last is that what do they really want, right? Meaning, do they want to be right from their intent? So the intent might be to buy just one pair of glasses a year, right? But can they look at more options if they're available to them at different points of time in the year, right? So what is the intent to what they actually buy to what happens after they buy? So I think if you capture these three broad data signals, who they are, where are they, and what do they want, that in our view allows you to be a lot more customer centric, right? And it's all based on how best you can leverage data for some of these aspects. That's my perspective on this.
Perfect. I think, Vinay, what's your take?
So, to echo what.
Sorry, Vinay, you're breaking up a bit again.
Is this better? Is this better, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So just echoing on what Gaurav had to say, being in a B2C business, you kind of have to be customer centric by default. And, I'm sure there's a bunch of, brands and companies that are successful. And if they haven't been customer centric, I think they've just managed to give the right set of products and offerings, and the customers are happy. So in fashion especially, it's a little tricky because what the consumer wants by the nature of fashion changes very frequently, and where they get their inspiration from has also been changing. It used to be, at least for ethnic wear, it used to be Bollywood, and then it moved on to TV shows, and now Instagram is everywhere. And so you have to constantly have your pulse on the market. And in addition to trying to figure out what the consumers want, you also have to figure out what it is that you would like to put out there. And depending on the size of the brand, and how much you think you can influence fashion, it's an interesting balance sometimes, because you need to see what trends are running. You need to see what it is that the consumers are looking at, and then you need to see what you can put out there which you think will still fit that kind of customer profile. And that often gives you the differentiation between other brands, right? Because otherwise you're more of a commodity.
Yeah. I think just one, as I reflect on, all the discussion we've had so far, I think one additional way, all of that you said was, of course, all perfect, but it's also about, creating consumers through consumers. If you think about it, and we've had a publication on it in the past called "Going for the Pot of Gold." So, assuming that the size of the prize that we are trying to unlock is almost like a unit consumer, then how do you use that one consumer to influence a lot more? Of course, having the right experience and giving the consumer delight across all channels as well. So moving on, and when I'll just pick on what you said, that what consumers want is continuously changing, right? I think added on top of that is that the journeys are becoming very complex. So just the intercepts of channels, or maybe the same channel but at a different location. That's what's happening on the channel front. And by virtue of that, there is plenty of data that is getting generated in the background. I think the question now is that how are retailers really putting this data to work for them? So what are really the top use cases that come to mind, which each of you have explored for your categories, and what kind of integration has been required to make those use cases real? So there is, yeah, Vinay, why don't you go?
Sure. So, there's been a big shift, especially in the last 6 to 8 months. I think being able to track a consumer's journey across touch points is very important. And, there's been a bigger shift to consumers shopping closer to their homes, at least, until a couple of months ago. Obviously, a lot of sales have gone online. I think what's critical is on the data side. One, I think there needs to be a single source of truth. You can't have different sets of data not matching up. And more than that, what are the actionable insights that you can get out of this data? I also feel that many times we don't see the value add in actually bringing all the different data sources under one data warehouse. And that's something that we've been doing over the last year or so. And, the kind of insights that pop up when you do that are quite interesting. So we've had our attendance and biometric data plugged up against my targets and my sales and things like that, and we noticed, because we have multiple categories. As an example, if I didn't have X number of people in my sari section, I actually saw a significant drop in sales on that day. So how can I use that? And it cuts across everything. You need to look at it from customer profile. You need to look at it from spending patterns. You need to look at it from, what is the merchandise mix that was available. So while it's important to look at each of these things so that you can optimize experience, so that you can optimize the assortment mix, so that you can optimize your return on investment for getting people into the store. It gets very interesting if you're able to connect those pieces together, and I think you get a lot of valuable insights from that.
Yeah. And what's coming to my mind is that, does it actually become, as you think of generating insights, does it become harder when you're in a business which kind of blends products and services? So maybe, Pratik, specifically for eyewear, because the fitting also matters. So as you do this collection of data, and some of this fitting, could be dynamic based on the life stage of the consumer as well. So one, does it become harder in these circumstances to actually see insights? Right?
So, we are both into product and service. The product has to be good. The service has to be exceptional, right? Because it is a category where the customer is not aware about the product, what he's buying so much, right? Because he needs the guidance of the salesman. Unlike you walking into a shopper stop or a apparel store where the customer decides what he wants to buy. That's why the salesman are only there to assist you, whether you have the size X or Y. But in the eyewear category, you have to be guided to buy the right product and the right lens to be fitted. And the type of frame that you select, he should be able to tell you, sir, this type of lens can be fitted. That guidance is very important. That's why the product is kind of capped up by the service levels. And that's very important. And all of our stores, if you have eye doctor that does an eye checkup also, right? So it is not only service level at selling, but also at dispensing. But I think how we track data centric points over here is we've seen that we don't have a direct correlation between number of staff at the store and the sales at the store, because it is a very niche product. But we look at a lot of repeat purchase of customers. So I kind of my DNA boils down to looking at, if a customer has come in 2015 and come in 2016 and 17, what is the frequency of the customer coming? And if the customer is dropped by, as he dropped by because what was his product category that he was in, what was the age profile of the customer? Sometimes you see that there is a customer coming for you last 3 years, but then after that past 2 years he is not come. Maybe he's migrated from that town, because we are only very south specific, right? So we get into understanding, if a customer is coming every year, is his average ticket value increasing? It cannot drop, because everybody going forward in their career earns more money, right? So we cannot allow that ASP of the customer to keep coming down. But these are the data centric points that we track and say that, okay, if we want to run a campaign, can we go ahead and uh, connect with the customers who have not come in the last 2 years? Can we go ahead and connect with the customers who have not come in the last 1 year? What is the product category? Show them some new products in the category. So I do a lot of data mining on that, and we spend time around that as to see how, one, to bring that footfall back into the store, either take them online or come to the store. Second, how to provide him a more valued product which seems to be of a higher value to him. Maybe his interest is that. So when we did this cloth thing and the computer glasses, we ran a campaign across all our customers. So we sold like about 3,000-4,000 cloths only in just about 2 hours. So because that was the need of the hour. The ticket value was less, but everybody needed that, right? And so that's how we basically started touching with our customers a lot. But I look at repeat purchase a lot. I think that's one of the key metrics which I look at a lot. And while before this meeting also started, I was only sitting and analyzing on that.
That's interesting to know. So I think Vinay spoke about using this data as an example, of course, in terms of how do you improve the effectiveness of your own sales team. Pratik, you spoke about some of the use cases around cross-selling and upselling, and also maybe specific merchandise for the consumers. Gaurav, any thoughts on what other use cases which you have explored over the past few years in this one?
Yeah. So in terms of our business being at that velocity where the order placement to delivery time is like 2-3 hours, the repeat purchases are happening in week to 10 days, literally. When you talk about fresh fruits and vegetables, for us, data becomes really like a lighthouse in terms of how we take the decisions and how we set some of these things up. For us, the big use cases are, number one, how do we keep the inventory consistent across all channels? Because it is the same pot of inventory from where the customer is buying at the store, from where we are picking. And then also, this is the inventory to which some of the returned inventory, if the order gets cancelled or something's coming back. So how do you keep that consistent? That's a big use case for us. The second is how we manage our store ops. So, our ability to pick faster, to pick better. Are we picking 100% of what we are getting in terms of the orders? If we're not picking, for what reasons? Are our pickers, are there some pickers who are the top percentile or the lower quartile? So, that monitoring and management. The ability to work with the store teams. For example, if you are running at a 97-98% fill rate at a store level, the balance 2%, what articles are getting dropped? How do we, again, keep that inventory in sync? Customer communication, that's a big area for us. The customer is at different stages of the funnel. It can be a brand new customer has come to the app, has downloaded the app but not placed the order or added to cart or has placed multiple orders. So, depending on where the customer is in the funnel, what Pratik was talking about, how do we make sure that the communication is contextual? It is, you can't manage so many segments. So how do you keep it automated but don't make it robotic? So, those are big chunks for us, which are all essentially driven, very data driven, to layer the human element on top of it, so that you don't lose that touch, you don't lose that authenticity, you don't lose the Tata factor, which we are known for. So it is the lighthouse, absolutely, at all touch points. but you've got to layer it with something else, to make it count.
Very interesting. Rajesh, you want to, talk about how hard or easy is it to actually create this, 360-degree view of the consumer data? And, of course, there are organizations who have been on this journey for a while. How long will it take for a startup to actually, get this right as well? I think just some dwelling on that, I'm assuming audience will really like that.
Sure. And I've been doing data for a long time. In fact, that's my background. I've been doing data analytics and data warehouse for over 20 years. So I've seen a bit of transition from the way we used to do it a few years ago and the way the cloud world allows you to do it, right? So that's a very pertinent point. Because when we look at data, it's all aspects, and it was already covered by one of the panelists, right? It's not just about the customer or consumer behavior to understand the signals and all the everything around how do you send the right message at the right point in time to create demand, and then fulfill the demand as well on the operations side by right assortment, forecasting, and even ensuring that you have the right replenishment happening at the right time and so on. All of that is driven by data. So the key thing then happens is, are we looking at data which is across all the different elements that matter? And again, it was touched on by one of the panelists to say, rather than having a fragmented view. So today we have point of sale, we have CRM, we have ERP at the back, right? So you are creating data at multiple places. And if you want to really get a true value of what benefit you can get is by integrating and unifying that. So that is the first thing that we advise our customers also. And that can at times be quite challenging, right? Because you're trying to get data which is not necessarily owned by you. There's a lot of second party and third party data as well, which is extremely valuable, and not just first party data that the retailers generate. So how do you get that into one place? So now there were challenges, and there still are, because then you have to deal with all kind of data quality issues, data duplication that you have to deal with, and put it into a central repository. But once you do have that, then you can start to look at various cuts of it, right? I want to look at it purely on the basis of seasonality. I want to look at it purely on the basis of geography. So that is the second issue that we deal with, right? How do you understand patterns and make it more relevant to who can use that for decision making? So there are a whole lot of technology available today that is not really a 2-year or a 5-year project anymore. The ability to pull data incrementally from these different sources. There are various connectors, there are various APIs that are available today that allow you to bring it into one place. There is machine learning that is applied not just in understanding customer behavior, but even understanding your own data. What is usable, what's not usable, what to keep, what to throw, right? Because if you want to deal, and that's the other point about data, right? We believe the more we have, the better it is. In my view, it's not just the more, it's the type of data we have is more valuable, right? So all of these, there are technology elements now that has made it easier for organizations to adopt and make it part of their workflows. Again, not make it standalone, but operationalization is extremely key in our view as well. So how do you make it more consumable to the end user that they have? So a lot of points there, and it's become much more seamless than it used to be.
No, thank you for sharing. Sujoy, how has been your experience making the loads of data available, consumable for your organization?
You're on mute.
Sujoy, you're on mute, I think.
Hey, sorry. So we segregated data and started looking at it in two parts. So one is, like the way Rajesh was mentioning, the first thing that we did was, so one is we created a hub and spoke model with respect to integration. So whether the data resides, so we had our leads, we had our orders, whether it is in point of sale or ERP, and then there were multiple logistics management systems. So the first thing that we did was we actually brought all of them together using, as Rajesh pointed out, I mean, APIs are so effective these days, these are not difficult to do. So into one core, system. And these were, so while we had some information which resided in one core system, and some information were all real-time calls based on some, the integrations that you bring in. And this is what was available all through in terms of to all the channels of communication, whether it was online or whether it was to our customer service guys or the stores. Now, from a use case perspective, that solves our problem. So one is entire. So if you look into our business, you don't go into a store and pick up a furniture and leave. You typically go, inquire, look at the price. You might have shortlisted it. You go back, you check the price on multiple other forums, on multiple marketplaces, online marketplaces, or many of our competitors. If you still like it, if you still like the pricing, okay, you might come back with your family, and then that's where you close the deal. Okay. So from our perspective, the use case begins from capturing the lead and the entire lead follow-up mechanism. Okay. So that's where it begins. And then once you close the order, then it gets, the order itself gets connected to what lead you had created, and then the rest of the logistics process with respect to it getting delivered, it getting fitted. Okay. So the entire data analysis, so one part of it is completely transactional, wherein you are basically right from follow-ups to the data being fed to the multiple channels of communication to have the same, like the point that I was making, the same view of that customer and the same view of that transaction. Okay. So that's the transactional aspect of it. Now this same data, once, and we ensure that when we have a hub and spoke model, the data that goes into hub cannot be unclean. You have the right data there, and because that is getting served on a real-time basis. Now this also is fed into our analytical system, and that's where you analyze, like the way we were putting into seasonality, we are talking of assortment mix, that's when we look into it. Okay. Now we also look at data in a very different way as well. So see, it's easier to look at online because you might have added a product onto the cart, and you know that there is an intent because the cart would be there, and you would know that there is an intent there. It is much more difficult when it is in the store, but the moment you have put together a very strong system with respect to lead management, and it's a connected system, so you can mirror the same effect. What are the ones which has a zero zero visibility. That's what you look at online, right? What were the products which were zero visibility products? That's why you optimize your assortment mix at the stores. Okay. What were the products which has the maximum intent but might not be, multiple, maximum intent, but what went wrong there? It might not have got bought. Okay. So you look at that aspect of data too. Then it also gives an aspect of, from a real-time perspective, what is available, what is not available. Because the moment you have linked everything, inventory management also gets linked, I guess. So all of that comes together as well. So yeah, one aspect of it is fairly tactical, focused on closing the transaction, following up on that, and the other is absolutely analytical.
I like the lens, of this twin lens that you have taken, Sujoy, very helpful. Let me ask all of you one question. Is it true that post-COVID has seen acceleration in your own agenda of being customer-centric? And, in hindsight, what could you have done differently in the past 2 to 3 years to move that agenda at the same pace?
I can go first.
Why not?
As we sort of discussed in the first question itself, I think from a customer centricity point of view, I think the focus, it's not like it's gone higher or lower. It's pretty much at the same level because the business has to be very, very customer centric. I think what's happened is that the crisis initiatives, is it worth running only 3? I think that has definitely changed for us. So the customer centricity is similar, but we've started focusing on actually fewer initiatives rather than running a bunch of pilots to make sure we are able to take them to fruition, and we're able to take advantage of the payoffs and then build on it, rather than going the whole sort of long haul in one go. So that's the sort of change in perspective for us.
Thank you for sharing that. Vinay, your thoughts on this one?
Sure. So couple of interesting things that we've seen over the last few months. One was a large percentage of the sales that were being generated from loyal customers. And we did talk to a lot of these people, and they said, look, if spends are down, that we want to stick to brands or products that we're familiar with, for whatever reason, right? It could be a promise of quality, or it's their first go-to, and therefore that's the first spend they do. And it then made us question, what is it that we can do to build this loyalty across newer consumers as well. So although we've always been tracking, what percentage of your sales come from loyal customers, I think it just made us dig into it a little deeper, and I don't personally believe that you can buy loyalty from any kind of program that you have. I think any loyalty program as well, it's the insights you get out of it and how you apply that to, again, give a better experience, whether it's product or service levels. And the other thing that we've definitely noticed is the service after sales is and sometimes I think it would be equally critical as up to the buy, and that's something that we've been doing. So we actually had virtual sales. We'd set up a lounge in the head office, and we would do a couple of calls, and these were just very frequent customers. And there was basically, the CRM team would ask them a bunch of questions as to what they wanted to see, because we actually had the time to set that up for them. And, it made a huge difference. And what we did after that was we started looking at, historical purchase patterns with consumers. And we also started, asking a few questions, and we've actually started sending out personalized catalogs or lookbooks. And I think it's made a huge difference, because one, it's more engaging, because they feel that you've actually made the effort to show them what it is that they've asked for, what it is that only buy. Because everything else is just, saying, hey, this is my new collection. And I think micro content and personalized communication is really going to be key going forward.
Very interesting. Pratik, how has this, been for you? Because I think, one part of your channel actually got set up as, just before COVID. So how was that experience for you, in terms of acceleration on this agenda during this time?
So I think one of the key things is as we went online, we obviously reached out to our existing customer base, because our stores were shut in April, right? So that's your first go-to-market strategy, that look, we are still available, but we are available online. And you've tested our product, you know our brand, you know our quality. So the probability of them purchasing is much higher, and that's what helped. A lot of people who were wanting to buy in April, their first question was, are you going to be able to deliver? Because there's a lockdown nationwide, right? We are delivering because we had the labs open. But see, I think understanding at a customer point of view, we did a deeper dive. We were spread across about 270, 280 stores, all formats. We had a store as well as 150 square feet and ranging to an average of about 500 to 600 square feet. We we reached out to customers. I personally kind of called up customers from at a personal level to understand. They had a very good insight. A lot of customers that we asked to, and we basically, when the pandemic lockdown kind of got closed, we sent out a appointment form to all our customers saying that, we are now open, stores are sanitized. If you want, you can fix an appointment, because at every hour we wanted only one customer to be. So that are less than 200 square feet. Said we would like to at least. So that us that are in size, because they feel that it is going to be very close contact with the employee. And if there are two people in a family coming together into the store, there are like 4 people in the store, which is about 200, 220 square feet. So we decided to relocate quite a bit of our stores, and we relocated about 8 to 10 stores in the same vicinity into stores that were about 400, 500 square feet, because I think that was a good move that we made, and that basically not only increased the business but also increased the like-to-like sales compared to the same month last year. Obviously sales have not come back to 100% pre-COVID, but customers started liking that as a strategy, saying that now your store is bigger, I feel more safer to walk in, unlike earlier where smaller stores they don't prefer. When they see too many customers inside the store, they say we'll come back later. So I think that thought process of the customer was very insightful. So even in our new expansion strategy, we are like, we don't know when another pandemic strikes or whatever happens, but people prefer stores that are about 400 square feet at a sweet spot.
This is specifically interesting, Pratik, because of course, in during this period, there are of course a lot of retailers who have optimized the number of stores and pull back the footprint. But what you are saying is that you have actually gone ahead and relocated the stores in the same time with larger space. That to me is like really, really interesting.
No, I think because it helps you optimize. It's like the rentals have dropped, at least where we have relocated. So you're getting a better sales rent per square feet store. So if you're 200 square feet store, you're paying about 30,000. At 4,000, you're getting a 400 square feet store today. So your optimization and our capex is not really very high because everything is modular. It's just plug and play, right? We move into that store. So and that has really helped us. And this is pure customer insight. Customers are not, and the stores that we are seeing a dip in sales are only stores that are smaller in size. People are still not comfortable walking into small stores. Stores that are cluttered between a lot of stores, stores that are, like standalone stores, which are slightly, larger facades or something, are doing much better.
Thanks, Pratik. I'm conscious of time, and I think audience questions will also start flowing in. So maybe one last question, Rajesh. I'll pick a question for you. So of course, retailers understand the importance of data, and there are multiple use cases to leverage that as well. Any advice from you on what pitfalls should they be avoiding?
Yeah,
or,
absolutely.
Critical mistakes that they have made in the past.
Yes, and I touched upon a couple of them already. So one is the whole fragmentation, right? Today there's still a lot of fragmentation of data, and then what happens is each department starts to do their own view of how the data should look like, and they look at it from their perspective, and that's good. It serves a purpose for a specific sales team or maybe an operations team or even the marketing team. But the true value comes is when, and it was highlighted earlier as well, when you bring it all together and cross-reference that and then push it back to all the stakeholders. So the first mistake is trying to do it for myself alone and start creating those independent silos, as we call them, right? I think that can be that's definitely avoidable. That used to be a problem when investment in IT and all was quite a long drawn process, but cloud has made that simpler. The second one is a combination of both volume and types of data, right? Again, volume is important. You have more volume, you can look at more patterns, you can create more simulations and so on. But ability to combine both internal and external data is extremely critical too. And I again said first party, second party, third party data. That again, I believe doesn't happen enough, and I think there's scope for incorporating that. And the last one that I always emphasize on is is operationalization. Data and analytics are great projects, right? But sometimes they end up becoming very nice tools that don't really get used on in practice, right? In the front end where it really matters on the shop floor or in the store, etc. So how do you make the end users, whether they are a sales representative or somebody on the shop floor, use data and analytics without realizing they're using it, right? So it's become part of the core workflow and the operationalization, but every decision they take is actually powered by a lot of intelligence at the back. So these are some of the things I think still in my view have scope to do better. And there are newer ways, newer techniques that allow you to do it better. And lastly is the whole idea around engagement, right? You spoke about the whole pandemic and the impact it's had, and that allows us to really engage customers in a new and different way as well. So for example, Google's been using the Lens technology, Google Lens that we all have on our Android phones, to essentially look at, let's say, an image of a shirt, right, and upload it, and then makes it searchable on an online store, or you walk into a store and you can look for inventory based on search data, the visual search data, right? So newer ways of engagement, I think, are getting more and more popular, and there is technology today that's available to enable all of those scenarios. Yeah.
Thanks, Rajesh. I'll just take a couple of audience questions. There's one interesting one. What is more important, being a data-driven retailer or a customer-centric retailer, and are they actually mutually exclusive? So, Vinay, you want to share your thoughts on this one? Vinay, you're not audible. Gaurav, would you like to go for it? I think Vinay is, figuring his mic till then.
Sure. So, I mean, no doubt that it's important to be a customer-centric retailer. I think the route to get there can be, by using data. So, it is it is but one of the paths, which you have to then layer, with your, gut or, bring in that human element. But clearly, being customer-centric is sort of first and foremost. That should be the North Star. There can be different ways of getting there. Data being one of them. That's how we look at it.
Vinay, are you back?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Perfectly well.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so they're not mutually exclusive. I think if anything, being data-driven allows you to improve on your customer centricity, and that's how it should be. Because your end goal, if you're in retail, I think that's what the question was, is to make the consumer happy. And therefore, a lot of the data that you're collecting is to improve upon that. So, I think they go hand in hand.
Thanks, Vinay. I'll pick up another interesting question that has come from the audience. Large organizations, of course, have teams to interpret the data that they receive. How can medium-sized retailers learn to make sense of data and actually use it faster? Rajesh, do you want to share your perspectives on this one?
Yes. So again, I'll go back to the operational aspect of it, right? The mid-sized organizations use like they were doing their normal work, right? And data is powered or at the back, right? And the other way to do this is by exposing a lot of these the high-end advanced capabilities as predefined models that can be consumed as APIs. So rather than having a sophisticated data science team building models for you, which is good as well, a lot of providers such as Google as well have started to publish API. So an example of that is a recommendation API. We all talk about recommendations, making the right recommendation at the right time. We could always build it from scratch or just call an API called recommendation API and feed it with your inventory and at the downstream, who are you targeting from our end customer, and all you do is an API call. Same thing when it comes to, let's say, language, right? India, we have so many languages, it's not just English. How do you translate it from one to the other? And that again is available to you as an API call. So that way, mid-sized organizations, and we're seeing a lot of adoption of data and analytics because it's literally available on tap, right? With little bit of customization, you're able to do a lot what traditionally would have required you to build everything from scratch. So I think that's where we're seeing the trend. A lot of startups have actually started to offer this as a service, so as technology providers, and make it more consumable without having to have deep time and investment that it used to require in the past. So that's where we're seeing it go towards. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rajesh, you had spoken about third-party data. So there's a very related audience question on this one, which says that how do you really get data for customers who don't engage directly apart from sharing basic demographic information?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything has to be in the realm of privacy and make sure that we are compliant to that. And once that happens, then Google in fact has public data sets. So we'll look at search trend data. What are people searching for? Which type of let's say clothes wear at what point in time, in which region, which part of the country. So that gives us search trend history and data. Then we look at data that comes from maps, right? From a location based. What part of the country or the world is what is the patterns that we are seeing? All that becomes third-party data. And then of course you have partnerships, right? Whether it's StarQuik or others, you would definitely have partnerships with your dealers, distributors to get, if not individual data, but aggregate data that allows you to even tap into understanding patterns better. So a lot of that third-party data is being made available. Then we also have organizations who run specific programs or promotions that allow you to interact directly with the customer. We work with a very large FMCG company that really engages directly with customers by running specific programs that allow them to get closer to those customers. So there are ways and means, Mani, that organizations are starting to adopt to look at combining and first collecting the third-party data and then using it internally in their processes.
Rajesh, you want to talk more about running direct programs with consumers?
Yes. So that again, it varies on who your target is. The first thing you want to look at is breaking it up into those multiple segments, right? And then for each of those segments, what is the targeted message that you might want to convey or send? So those direct programs that you run can be on a simple D2C, which is direct to consumer type of a platform through a web channel, or setting up certain engagement means. So gamify the whole thing, right? When you start to gamify that engagement, then you start customers to be much more responsive, and then you are able to get the data which is more relevant for you to have both from a product creating or engaging with new products, and finally even delivering them in an effective manner. So there are different ways depending upon the category. There are different ways and means to look at direct engagement model.
Very helpful. Let me ask some of the retailers who've had brick and mortar experiences in the past, like how one of the audience questions is about thinking about CCTV based video analytics as a revenue unlock. Has any one of you explored that? Sujoy, if you want to speak about this one.
Yeah. So yeah, we had explored that. So one of my previous organization, we did that, and that was into apparel retail. So I mean, see, honestly, the technology is there and is fairly advanced. So the idea is to understand various hotspots in the organization, in the store, based on video analytics, and hence optimize the entire planogram. Now, having said that, there are two thoughts to the same technology. Thought one is you optimize on the basis of data that you get. That's effectively your data-driven decision. The alternative thought to that, which might be equally relevant, is see, you put offers, right? You put offers in multiple parts of the stores, or now the way your store is designed and the way you have put offers is the way your ingress and egress is lined up. Okay, and that's going to lead to data, meaning your hotspots is a function of what you have already decided. Okay, might or might not, but that might also be true. Okay, so as in law, retailers get stuck in this entire conundrum. Should I actually take a decision based on data, or we already know this is what we anyway had planned it on? So it should look this way. Now, the best way to resolve this is to do a hypothesis. You create a hypothesis and you test that hypothesis. You probably, for a certain period of time in a certain store, you might or might not run an offer, and you see how does it actually work. What's the organic flow of traffic? Okay. So effectively, video analytics is something it throws up. It actually gives you the picture that you want to see. We, of course, from a tech standpoint, the thought process that's coming up is sensor-based analytics is even more effective. But these are again viewpoints. It might have worked for or a set of retailers. So these are again viewpoints.
That's helpful. Pratik, another audience question, and that's about saying, when you think about newer products and innovation, is the cost of innovation, the driver or an important trade-off, or is it really the potential revenue unlock that you focus on?
I think there is a cost to innovate and cost to research, because it's time bound. But I think you first need to understand the customer's problem, and then your innovation will go in the right direction. If you're going to innovate a product which the customer is not going to afford or like, then the innovation goes to waste. So basically understanding what the customer's problem is and then moving in that direction to innovate. I mean, you might want to innovate a lot of products, but that if it's not acceptable to the customer, the innovation then becomes a research. It never becomes a product, right? So I think we do spend a lot of time on innovation and research. And fortunately, so far, we've converted every innovation and research into product. So until, but obviously, we haven't faced a decision where, our innovation went to waste. Some of the product gets launched to the store. Yeah.
So starting, as long as the starting point is from what are the consumers really desiring?
So we do a lot of focus groups. So whenever I decide on coming out with an innovation or research, we do a focus group of about 10 people. So, we basically do a focus group city-wise, like in Bangalore, in Chennai, and say, okay, what do you think the price of this product should be at? What do you think? Will you buy this product? I mean, you will get very mixed reviews, but until you don't do a focus group and until you don't do a research study by a neutral person, you will never be able to understand. Otherwise, you will always be biased कि ये product chalega, and you will always want to launch it because it's your product. But it might not be actually accepted by the customer.
Right. Or the kind of stuff Vinay was sharing, that they set up a lounge and then ended up calling the consumers and actually understanding what could they do differently with their products. So this is, very helpful. Maybe one last question, which is again coming from the audience. Will personalization and customer centricity mean different things for different formats?
I think yes.
Yeah.
I think yes. Every store personalization is different to each format. Shop and shop is the different personalization to a standalone store. Is a different personalization to an e-commerce channel. I think the customer touch points are very different. The profile of customers are very different. The expectation of the customer is very different. A customer coming on an e-commerce site will expect something very techy. A customer going into a shop and shop of your store will experience something which is very normal. A customer walking into your own store will expect the world-class in service. So I think personalization are different, and the kind of staff at different locations are also different. I mean, it's very important.
Any of the other panelists want to add?
So
the what part, sorry. I guess the what part is the same, right? I mean, effectively, you personalize because you want to be customer centric. Okay, how you do it is again would differ from, whether it is e-commerce, whether it's shop and shop, the way I look at it. Yeah.
I mean, the way we look at being customer centric is that, okay, we want to serve money as a customer well. Now, whether money is ordering online or whether she is in the store, her requirements on both channels might be different. But customer centric becomes, it starts at the point of the customer rather than the channel. So of course you need to see what the important things are or what the criterias are when you are across channels or when you are in different stages of the journey. But being customer centric, that to my mind sort of stays similar across channels.
Yeah, so I'm conscious of time as well, and I think there are two things which I am distinctly taking away from this panel. I think very good discussion to unanimously kind of establish that the what still remains being customer centric. So you spoke about it when you said that, Gaurav, you were very clear that objective is customer centric, and what stuck with me is that the road to getting there is data driven, but really the North Star you're chasing is consumer centricity. And the second thing is that as all of you are trying to leverage this data and of course use it for improving the operations, but at the same time the consumer experience, it all still has to feel very automated, but not to the extent of being robotic. So getting that balance is also very important. These are my two takeaways from this discussion. So super discussion. I want to thank all the panelists. I also want to thank the audience that tuned in and asked us all of these questions, and of course the RAI team for getting the logistics sorted and having all of us together. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thanks everyone.